Senator Mike Lee from Utah posted this X thread walking us through the truth about the Social Security scam that we're all living in. And for a long time, as a boy growing up and as a working man, I've always been paying into Social Security, always asking, are we ever going to see this at all? The dollar is being inflated away. The value is going down. Our government is more and more corrupt. It feels like they ransack every single slush fund they can get their hands on for their pet projects like paying off war. So what is going to happen? And President Trump just won the election. He's coming in. Doge is coming back up. And we're going to see, are they going to reform Social Security, one of the greatest entitlement programs ever created? What was this about? Are people better off as a result of the Social Security Act? Here's what Base Mike Lee says for us. Says, of all the deceptive sales techniques the U.S. government has used on the American people, one of them, called the Social Security Act, gets far too little attention. Buckle up. This is a wild ride. FDR seated there, four-term president, because he couldn't honor the historical precedent set by everyone else, wouldn't leave office. In 1935, the American people were sold a bill of goods. They were sold this idea that you pay into this system and it'll be your money for retirement. Sounds good, right? Maybe. But here's where it gets juicy in an ugly way. 2 years later, after they passed this act, when the Supreme Court was considering the constitutionality of the Social Security Act, the government did a complete 180. The government, through Assistant Attorney General called Robert Jackson, argued, he said, oh, no, this isn't your money at all. It's a tax. And we can do whatever we want with that money because it's a tax. They're not holding it in escrow, in custody, for you to get when you come back, when it's yours. Nope, it's theirs. They can do whatever they want. So there was a ruling in the case called Helvering versus Davis, where the Supreme Court upheld the Social Security Act by embracing that argument. They say it's a tax. The same scam that Judge Roberts gave us with the Obamacare Act when he created Obamacare, not as a mandate, which is unconstitutional to force you to go do something, just called it a tax. You just have to pay a tax. Is available. And all that tax money can be used by Congress. It can do whatever it wants with that money. Not all money belonging to those who paid it. It was not their money. It was the government's money. So to summarize, here's a background. The proponents of the Social Security Act told the American workers and the American people who pay into this that what they paid into the system would remain their money, not the government's money at all. But Congress then passed it, and then they told the courts the exact opposite. The Supreme Court accepted the government's argument to the great detriment of the American people. But what actually happens to your money now once it's in the government hands? It's not managed like your IRA or your 401k, not at all. First of all, the money doesn't sit in a nice individual account with your name on it. No, it goes into a huge account. All this money goes into the Social Security Trust Fund. But here's the kicker. The government raids this fund. Yeah, you heard that right, says a senator. They take, quote, your money and they use it for whatever the current Congress deems necessary. Every few years, there's talk in Congress about saving Social Security, right? We've heard it. I've introduced and co-sponsored a number of measures over the years that would fix it, but most in Congress show little desire to fix it at all, and instead are constantly looking ways to borrow from it without any plan to put it back, and we all got to pay it. And the returns, are you going to make any money from this? Is it a good investment since they're going to have your money for 30, 40, 50, 60 years? Are you going to get a huge return because they invested it wisely like you could have done? And the returns, wrong. Forget about compound interest or stock market gains. Your investment can give you a return that's lower than inflation. Now, if you have put the same amount of money into literally anything else, a mutual fund, real estate, even a savings account, which gets like no interest, you'd be better off by the time you retired. Even if the government kept some of that money, right? That's how insane this is. Do the math. With Social Security, you're looking at a return that's pathetic compared to market averages. Think about even just like Bitcoin. It's not even an investment. It's a tax. It's a tax. And let's talk about how this system is set up to fail. The demographic shift, more retirees, fewer workers. It's almost fair to compare it to a Ponzi scheme that's running out of new investors. Every dollar you pay into Social Security is only gobbled up by the government. Every dollar is a dollar you can invest in your own future. It's government dependency at its worst. Remember, it's not about retirement, okay? It's about independence. You have to control your own destiny. With Social Security, you don't control anything. The government promises you security, but gives you dependency. We rely on them now. It promises ownership, but it gives you a tax bill. And don't get me started on the management, he says. The Social Security Administration is a bureaucratic behemoth not exactly known for its efficiency or innovation. If you think your money is safe there, you're in for a rude awakening. The mismanagement, the waste, the deception, it's all on display. So what's the solution? We need real, genuine reform. Within the Social Security system, Americans should be able to invest in their own future and not be shackled by the worst parts of this outdated, mismanaged system. It's time we acknowledge the truth. Social Security as it now exists isn't a retirement plan. It's a tax plan with retirement benefits as an afterthought. We were sold a dream. We received a nightmare. It's time for a wake-up call. We need real reform. It's time for Americans to know the true history of the Social Security Act. The more people learn the truth, the more they'll start demanding answers, options, and real reform. So please spread the word. We're trying, Mike. The history of the Social Security Act, which sadly must include the deceptive manner in which it was sold to the American people, is yet another reason why the America's century-long progressive government must be brought to a close. And please follow me if you'd like to read more. And that, I think, is a good summary of exactly what's happening. And the idea that someone like myself is going to be getting a nice windfall when I retire in however many years has always been a fantasy. I don't believe that we can rely on that because our government is broke and they keep spending like it doesn't matter. And they don't really have a good plan, I think, for shoring up the value of the dollar for the next 30 to 40 to 50 years. I think the money is better spent elsewhere. And if they could just allow us to say, hey, you have these options, put it into a Bitcoin thing that the government manages and the government creates a liquidity pool or something and they get some benefit off that, but you can't take it out and you get tax benefits if you put it in there, so that they can actually create a safety net, right? Create a Bitcoin system or create some other investment vehicle that you can control, that you can see is yours and it's not being ransacked. It's about the custody. The government, it cannot be a good steward of our money. They cannot be a good steward of our border, of our safety, of our health and wellness. And so we're going to be excited to see what Doge does with Social Security and all of the entitlements when Elon and Vivek ride into Washington. All right.